All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope you are having a fantastic morning. I am joined here this morning by Lion Fludd, my friend. And Lion is a video specialist, a content creation coach, and podcaster extraordinaire. He is the host of Redesign Your Life. And frankly, we have some stuff to share with you today, and we wanted to just hop on and have a conversation because we were chatting in the DMs. And I guess I should introduce myself very briefly too, as I know we're going to share this around. So very quick intro. I'm Christy Holt. Also known as the Happiness Hussy. I am also a podcast host and author, and my podcast is called Create Your Happy. So I am actually ramping up to a whole new season 3, which is going to be all about relationship. I am switching things up and going solo this season, and I'm really excited. And so Lion and I were chatting in the DMs about some stuff, and we decided we were going to come live today and share with you 3 tips that you can implement right away to strengthen the bond that you have with your partner, your lover, your best friend, your child, your coworker, whoever, right? This really will apply to anyone that you will have a close relationship with. And so I hope you're going to enjoy these 3 tips today. So good morning, Lion. I would love for you to hop on and let us know a little bit about you, and then we'll dive into these 3 tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. I sincerely appreciate that. And to everyone out there, hey, it's a great day, you know what I'm saying, to get that smile on. So a little bit about myself and these 3 tips of why I feel like I'm validated to kind of talk on that is because I have been through a lot of failed relationships, right? We say we learn from failure. But the best thing about it is when you fail, you take those tips and then you learn how to adjust and grow from it. And then also maturity and growth, I think, have helped me out. So I'm excited to share some of those ideas. And I tell people, take it with a grain of salt because everyone's situation is different. These are just general kind of things, but they apply to so many different aspects.
Absolutely. And, I often say, try it on. And that is really ultimately to say, like, take this perspective, take this suggestion, take this idea, try it on. If it fits, cool, keep wearing it, keep trying it on, keep wearing it about and, seeing how it impacts your life. And if it doesn't fit, that's okay. You can take it off and try something else on instead. So let's dive right in and let's share the first tip for our audience to try on today. Now, I don't know, this is definitely something that we should all be trying on and practicing, because I think that communication is such a crucial skill in relationship building. And, you're going to see that woven throughout my podcast season upcoming. And it's also a key pillar in the course that I'm launching called Love Reimagined. And so communication is like the heart of your relationship. And so if you have a relationship and you want to deepen that intimate connection, you're going to want to pay attention to your communication. And it's easy, I know, to point fingers and say, they're not listening, they're not doing, they're this, they're that. But the truth is, the only person you can change is you. So with that in mind, we are joined here to share some tips that you can implement today so that you can start improving your communication with those around you. Starting with number 1, active listening. This is a skill that can take a little bit of practice. I don't know that we were necessarily taught this skill, especially in the schools where we were actually taught to sit down, shut up, and listen to what we're told. And we weren't necessarily, given opportunities to really develop this skill. And if we didn't have healthy models showing active listening and things like paraphrasing, mirroring, and, checking your understanding, we just might think that our other communication skills are just fine. So listen up, take it with a grain of salt, but with an open mind as well, because some of these tips just might change your intimate relationship starting today. Lion, I want you to share one of your favorite active listening tips.
Yes. And you hit it on the head when you said we weren't taught these kind of things, right? And so, in life, in relationships or whatever, we weren't, and I always do this, so prepare. We weren't given a manual, not Emmanuel, but a manual, right? But And so we learn from what we see growing up with our parents or people who are surrounded us, and then so it's not always their fault because they weren't taught these things. But here's one of
Right.
my favorite things I love doing. And when I first met my wife, she looked at me like I was crazy for doing this. She's like, "What are you doing?" Because she thought I was not paying attention to her. Whenever we would have a discussion or a disagreement or something, we wanted to speak on something, I would grab a pen and a pad or a notebook and I would start writing down. She thought I was ignoring her. And then as time went, I started explaining to her, no, I'm giving you the grace to get out what you want to get out, but I'm writing down like bullet points of when I'm able to speak of something I want to come back and say to you, right? Because most of us, we're thinking, no, that's not right. Let me tell you what, I want to interrupt you. I want to get my point out
Yeah.
to you, but then I'm not understanding the rest of what you're saying. So I would write down bullet points. And then when she would, get done, which goes into another technique that we have, I would say, okay, I look at my pad. I'm like, all right, so you said A, B, or C, and D, and my thoughts on that are this. How can I, so that's one of my biggest things with active listening is really say, I want to pay attention to my spouse. And even today, if there's something that we want to have a serious conversation, I'll turn the TV off. I take my phone and flip it over, put it on vibrate. My focus is on you at this moment and whatever concerns you have going on.
And that's such an important thing to remember, because in today's world, we've got our phone in hand. And honestly, I don't know if anybody else like me, but I'd be looking for my phone while having it in my hand sometimes. We're that attached to it. And so it's so easy to be distracted by the world around us, not just the phone, but if you have kids, if you've got work, you've got all of these competing factors, it can be a challenge to sit down and tune everything else out. I also find that writing some notes, writing some key points down can be really helpful, especially if you have a bit of a squirrel mind like mine, where I might forget some of those things, because I find that that's where I get looped in my head, right? I'm like, oh, I don't want to forget to mention this. I don't want to forget. Then I realize I haven't been listening. So it is really helpful to get it out of the mind and onto the paper so that you can now continue listening to what they're saying now, right? Let them really finish their expression and then come back with the second piece. And ultimately, the goal here is listening to understand and really hear them, not listening to formulate your response. So if you, like I have found myself so many times in the past, have found yourself thinking about what you're going to say and kind of mulling that over and realize, oh shit, I haven't actually been hearing now what they have been saying because I've been thinking about my response. This one is for you. And ultimately, the end goal here is to maintain connection, right? This is when you're trying to strengthen this bond with your partner. Your intention here should be, and I don't like to shit on people, but I think most people would agree that the focus should be on maintaining that connection throughout your communication. I mean, that is going to help you have those healthy, happy relationships. And if you're not focused on maintaining that connection, then what are you focused on? Being right? That's not going to turn out well. Winning the game, winning the argument, that is also not going to turn out well. Those things actually damage the connection. So remembering that that connection is at the forefront can really help you preserve that connection itself and help you avoid a whole lot of unnecessary arguments. And now fighting is not good. Disagreeing is excellent. You're two people. You should have different opinions on things. That is never going to be a problem. But when you're getting into disrespectful commentary, conflict, argument, raised voices, inappropriate comments, hurtful things, now we've gone away from that connection, right? So I want to just remember to bring that connection to the forefront of your communication. It will really save you a lot of heartache. I'm telling you, again, just like Lion said, this is coming from a lot of personal experience, this conversation today. We have, so you don't have to, we have been there, fucked around and found out, and we are sharing with you now how you can avoid some of those unpleasant outcomes. So maintaining that validation, right? Maintaining that connection, allowing that person to feel truly seen and heard is a complete game changer in relationships. And so, as I mentioned, there are a few things like mirroring or paraphrasing that can really help you to let your partner know that you have indeed heard them, that you do understand. And you have a technique as well that I want you to share about how we can actually take turns and finish listening to one another before we start talking. So I have used this in the past in my family as well, because it can be hard to not interrupt and not talk over one another. And I would say not just in an intimate one-on-one relationship, but in a family setting, this is an excellent tool as well. So please share about the teddy bear technique here.
Yes, yes, yes. Teddy bear technique. And really quick, I also want to kind of touch on what you said about the
Yeah.
validation thing, and it'll lead into the teddy bear technique. Is I found that, like, let's say, for example, if someone's having a disagreement, an argument, it's usually the case one person wants to be heard, and then one person wants to talk later. They like, I don't want to deal with this right now. Sometimes in
Yeah.
those moments, what I found is if you can validate that person who wants to express themselves at that moment and just let them know, say, hey, you know what, honey, I understand this conversation is important to you, and I promise you, discuss this with you tonight or maybe later. Right now, I need some time to process it. Do you mind if I take some time? But I promise you, we're going to talk about. You're letting them know it's important to them, and you are not ignoring their concerns. You will find that they will probably be like, "Oh, okay. Long as we talk about it tonight, then yeah."
Yeah. We got to cycle back though,
Validated.
right? I've
Yes.
been there where there has been no cycle back, and that is a problem too. So
Yeah.
absolutely
So,
ask for that space. Be honest. If you're
yeah.
not in the right space, you need space to process, communicate
Yeah.
it, right? That's going to help you
Yeah.
both.
Absolutely. And so when you go to do that talk, now you can have the teddy bear. And I say the teddy bear because it's soft and squishy or whatever, right? But it basically is the essence of whoever has a teddy bear has the ability to speak at this moment. They get the time to let themselves out. There's no time limit. There's nothing. You at that point get your pad and paper and write down because you're going to get the teddy bear. So now sometimes you're going to want to. But hey, I want to do this, and all you got to do is simply hold the teddy bear up. Say nope or squeeze the teddy bear, right? And it's just to show the sign of respect. You can use anything. It could be a pencil, it could be, a pillow or something like that. But it's just basically to say, I have the opportunity to speak. I have the floor. It's my time. You will have yours. I'll give you the teddy bear and you have the time to speak and I won't interrupt you. It's just a sign of respect and that you're concerned, like you said, about their feelings.
Yeah. And it's important
Mhm.
too, like we mentioned, if it's not a good time for you to talk, it's really important to actually, the next point here, I'm going to just segue us right into point two because it ties in really nicely. Point two is about checking in. And
Mm.
so, first and foremost, this is checking in with you, right? Because you're the one who can control you. So, you want to check in with you because, what do I need in this moment? And how can
Mm.
I communicate that to my partner? Then it's also really important to check in with your partner because what do they need in this moment? That's going to be really helpful information for you because if they just want you to listen, they are not going to be receptive to all your potential solutions, right? Sometimes we just want to be heard, and sometimes we do want to brainstorm ideas or solutions. But those are two very different responses, and it really behooves you as the conscious partner who's here listening for these tips to implement a little check-in with yourself and with your partner so that you can maintain that connection and really provide that valuable, deep connecting conversation that I know that you are seeking. So
Yeah.
really, truly just pausing, asking good questions of yourself, of your partner, remaining curious and open. And a huge piece of this is avoiding making judgments and assumptions. And this for all your communication, not just the check-in, but really maintaining that sort of connection with yourself that, hold on a minute, is my judgment hopping in here? Am I making assumptions instead of asking questions? Because when I start to move away from the assumptions and judgments and instead get curious, I end up getting so much closer to the person I'm having a conversation with, right? Because now they have an opportunity to really truly share of themselves, right? Not be pigeonholed into a box. I'm not creating the conversation that I want to have inside my head and expecting them to just follow along. We're literally having a dialogue back and forth. And so that
Yeah.
is, really crucial if you want to have these meaningful conversations. We've got to be a little vulnerable. we've got to remain open. We've got to stay curious.
And you know what? I love it. And I'm gonna tell a technique that we use. And then there's one part afterwards that I am going to say that's going to probably rock everyone's world, because I have a disagreement with some of societal's thinking on the subject. But first, the way that my wife and the way that my wife and I started doing this is because I meet her where she's at. When we first started dating and we first started learning each other, I'm a vocal person. I love communicating with words, hands, and I speak that way. She wasn't. She was more of like timid and not wanting to, avoid confrontations, even though it's us working things out and learning. But she would write things. So I said, okay, let me meet you where you're at. So, and we still do this to this day. Every like 6 months or once in a while, we check in with each other and we ask, how are you doing? What do you need from me? What am I not giving you? Because as humans, we get into a little normal thing. We just forget.
It's routine.
And it's right. Yeah. But what we do is we'll write on pieces of paper. We'll take 3 pieces of paper and write what I need from you and so forth. And then we switch them. And so now I don't have to hear it, because maybe you don't want to vocalize it. You feel like I can't say it correctly or the right way. So you write it down. And now I hold a piece of paper. Oh, wow, I didn't realize I wasn't doing that any longer. I didn't realize that you needed me just to hug you. And she'll write, I just need to hug occasionally.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of that. And so now we every day we try, but every day for the most part, we work to give each other a 20-second embrace. No words, just a deep hug, and then that's it, right? Yeah. So that's one way that we check in with each other. And then I'm going to say this really quick and give it right back to you, is in a relationship, most people, 99.9% of people have been taught that communication is the key to a relationship. I'm going to disagree. I challenge anyone to put in the chat, if you're watching this on a live, on a replay, follow me on this. Understanding is the key to a relationship, because you can communicate all day and tell your partner, can you please not put your socks on the floor? Can you but if they don't understand how or why it bothers you so much or how it affects you, then to them it's just you complaining or so if they can understand what you're trying to communicate to them, it helps it so much. Give me an award. Someone give me an award, quick. I'm here with Christy Holt.
I, of course, completely agree with you. Communication requires 2 sides. And so you can be a most fantastic communicator, but if the other party is not understanding you, if that message is not landing, there really truly is no communication. Right? There is an interrupt and the message is not getting across. You're not really communicating, right? It's an attempt at communication. But what we have to work on is getting to know our partner and how they really learn, how they really grow, what kind of languaging, what kind of example, like what is their best strategy, so that we can really communicate in a way that does end in mutual understanding and connection. Because you're absolutely right. And I love your example actually too of writing things down, because it can be really vulnerable, right? Especially if we have spent our whole lives shoving down all of the things that we truly want for ourselves. I mean, I don't know anyone who hasn't gone through the education system and been raised by other humans who is not shoved down their own desires at some point or another, saying, oh, my emotions are too big. This thing I want is too much. I don't know if I'm worthy of that. Oh, this other person didn't receive me in the way that I thought, and I'm just going to tamp that down. We have all gone through life with a lot of those experiences. And so it can be extremely difficult, for us to express ourselves completely, authentically, honestly, vulnerably. Like that can be a big ask. So getting to communicate your needs really is a really crucial part of deepening this intimate bond and strengthening the connection with your partner. That is our point 3, communicating your needs. Because if you don't express your needs and boundaries with honesty and clarity, how is anyone else going to respect and understand what those are? Now, some of y'all out there don't know what they are for yourself. So that's step number one, is figuring out where your own boundaries are. What are your actual needs? And if you have been a people pleaser, hello, I have resources for you all over the place. So just comment below people pleaser. I will hook you up with those. But if you have been in this pattern of people pleasing and living life for everyone else, this can be a real challenge for you to figure out, what is it that I want? What are my boundaries? And sometimes that requires a little bit of experimentation. It kind of, requires some deep reflection, and boundary setting and vulnerability is something that I really dive into in my Authenticity Unleashed program. So if that is something that you are struggling with, setting and communicating those boundaries, hit me up. I got you. I got you back. I got you covered. We're going to figure out for you, first of all, what your needs and boundaries are, and then develop those skills so that you can communicate those to others. Because boundaries are not meant to be a wall. They're meant to be an invitation into deeper connection with you. And so when you get that right, you're going to start to see those relationships start evolving.
Yeah. Boundaries, I apologize. Boundaries are not you saying no to others. It's you saying yes to your peace.
Yes. Yes. And I love the way, and I think it's been quoted by a couple of different people, Prentice Hill and Brene Brown also mentioned it in the book, that in her book, now the name is escaping me, Atlas, something, Love Atlas or something like that. And I'm having a brain fart. I maybe need more coffee. But she mentioned boundaries are the distance at which I can both love you and love myself simultaneously. And I love that, because that is the best description of boundaries that I have seen. It is ultimately about how can we respect each other, not either one of us having to, significantly compromise. Yes, small compromises, but not big compromise, not giving up who you are to appease someone else or to avoid conflict or any of these things, but really so that we can deepen that bond and that connection together. Yeah. And so, when you keep your communications, I have one last sort of like sub tip here. When you keep your communications focused on yourself as opposed to the other person, I'm going to call this radical responsibility right here in communication. This is just meaning you're communicating your feelings, your experiences, your desired outcomes, while remembering the goal is this win-win connection, right? Win-win solution. So you can maintain the connection, you can maintain the love and respect in the relationship, but you want to express your position and not label their position. That's their space to share. And so we can really get stuck in patterns of saying like, you always, you never. We can have disrespectful commentary, and none of that is going to help us accomplish the outcome of strengthened bonds in our relationship. Those are all probably going to lead to creating defensiveness and conflict. So if those are patterns that you have seen coming up, that's great. Seeing something coming up is actually your first step. That awareness is step number one. You can't change something when you're completely unaware of it. And so now if maybe you're aware, oh my gosh, maybe I have some of these less than favorable patterns that may be contributing, to outcomes that I don't want. Now is your opportunity to really reflect. How can you shift that? How can you maybe work on your language to express yourself? And ultimately, to me, that's getting to know yourself really well so that you can now share of yourself with others.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with all of that, I want to give a big tip. And this is a tip to every lady that hears this, okay? Please hear me when I say this from a man's point of view. We are simple creatures. We are. We act complicated, but we're simple creatures. And I don't care how long we've been with you, we cannot read your mind.
That goes both ways.
You should have known I wanted this. You should have known I should have, but I'm sorry, I was thinking about fishing, so
Yeah, I mean, okay, so in the world there are people who claim they are psychic, and I'm not disputing their claim. They very well might be, but I'm going to say in general, not very many of us are mind readers. First of all, who would even want to have that skill? That would probably be extremely overwhelming. I wouldn't want to hear every thought that's in the mind of everyone around me. So just dibs out on that. But you're right. We don't know. And so what happens when we don't know? We make assumptions, we make judgments, we guess, we have all of these other outcomes that we're actually just creating inside of our mind. So again, we're not mind readers, none of us. So let's ask those good questions, right? Let's ask for clarity. Let's not make assumptions. Let's not judge things without getting all of the information first. And that's going to really help us to stay focused on that connection, communicating clearly and lovingly, and getting that intimate bond that we're seeking.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Any final
You hit it
thoughts,
on the head.
Lion, before we wrap up this conversation about 3 tips for intimate bond?
I just, the final thought I would just say is you just have to choose, kind of like you were saying, you have to choose and learn yourself first, right? Take some time, take a sabbatical, take a weekend in the forest, do whatever you got to do, right? But learn yourself, and then you will understand how much more you need to be loved, what you need to be loved by, how, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then just push yourself and enjoy life, right? I want you to take the time and mastercate people 20 times. Chew your food, okay? That's what the word means, right? Take the time, enjoy the food, enjoy life. Andreas lentamente, it's Italian for means go slowly. Enjoy those moments.
Life is for the living. It is all about this experience. So get out there. Today I'm highlighting an episode of my podcast from season 2, which was called Living Your Fuck Yes Life. And honestly, this is about choosing how you wish to have this human experience. What are you going to create today? Get out there with that intention. If it's intimate bonds with your partner, hold that intention with you and get out there and start creating it. Everything starts with that intention within you. And this is what I teach about. I have books, journals, programs, all kinds of things to help you really get in touch with you. So if that is something that is calling, nudging you today, please feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to share some resources to get you started on that journey. Thank you so much, Lion, for sharing your insights here. I know that the listeners are going to have found value in these tips, and I hope that they're going to take them into, this coming holiday season and apply them not just to their romantic partnerships, but also apply some of these tips and tricks with maybe some of those family members too, as we're heading into a season of meeting more people and hanging out with a little bit more people. These tips are going to help you in all areas of life. Literally, it's about transforming your life from the inside out, right? This basis, this foundation of relationship with self, and then spreading that out of overflow, giving of overflow of love and abundance to those around you. So thank you so, so much for listening. I hope that you all have an amazing day. Thank you, Lion, again, for sharing your wisdom. Please do check out Lion's show, Redesign Your Life. And I hope you have an amazing day. If you have questions for either of us, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Yes. Thank you, guys.